In this video, you will learn how to use patterns and textures successfully in your designs. Patterns and textures can soften sharp angles, it can create periodic atmosphere, it can even trick you into thinking that a room is bigger than it actually is. It can also hide away imperfections or badly proportionate rooms. Pattern is a brilliant carrier of personality. The heyday of patterns were between 1880 and 1930 during the Victorian era. When it comes to patterns and textures in a space, consider the following. Understand the use of the room. Can you see what or where the focal point is, or where it can potentially be in a room? Consider the scale elements in the room. If the scale is wrong, there's no balance at all. Consider balance elements in the room. How much stimulation is required for the function of the room? When presented with a new design idea, one must take time to think, pondering how it will fit into the 10 elements of great design. Let's look at the following design elements that will help you understand the preceding factors when it comes to selecting the right patterns in a room. Design style. A designer's job is to help your client determine which style is right for them. This will also help with the appropriate pattern and texture selections. I will cover a few iconic design styles in the next section. Scale. A sense of scale derives from the relationship between one element and another, between table and chair, person and room. Furnishings should be properly scaled to the size of the room they inhabit, while rooms themselves should relate to the human body. Objects should have the same visual weight, creating balance and equilibrium. Questions to consider. Does the room have a strong center line or central axis? Divide rooms into zones or map out accessories. Proportion. This principle concerns the relationship of parts to the whole. Base and crown moldings should be in proportion to the overall dimensions of a room. For instance, a table base should not overwhelm or be disproportionate to the top. Items should always exemplify good proportion. Questions to consider. What is the relationship between the interior and adjacent exterior spaces? Have you experimented with different proportions of the color palette to control the desired mood? This is exactly why graphic designers thrive as interior designers. This is key to the overall look and feel of a space. Balance. A sense of equilibrium derives from mirror-like symmetry or carefully calibrated asymmetry, whereby opposing elements are differently arranged yet have the same visual weight. A designer plays with balance to create peacefulness via equilibrium or excitement via disequilibrium. Questions to consider. Is the room symmetrically balanced? If not, can a built-in architectural feature, furnishing, or finish be adjusted or introduced to instate balance? Repetition. Repeated elements, whether arrayed randomly or in a rhythmic sequence or set in a grid, bring visual order and emphasis to a space. Questions to consider. Are there any architectural or structural elements or adjacent exterior influences that already have a rhythmic value? It can be ceiling beams or open trusses, a large round window, etc. Choosing pattern with architectural structure accentuates this detailing and continues the story in a different way. Decide whether you want to hide, disguise, or integrate them. Is there an opportunity to create a repetition of objects as textual patterning? Alignment. This term describes when various features, whether artworks or architectural elements or patterns, line up along their edges or center lines. Note, ill-placed doors and windows can create awkward circulation patterns, which can limit the room's optimal use. Doors and windows sometimes need to be repositioned or realigned. Form. Form is important not only for its functionality, but also creating visual interest. By using different forms, it lures the eyes along a curving path or line. Questions to consider. Is there a sense of spatial hierarchy? Is one area clearly emphasized by an architectural feature? Where are the room's key focal points? The features that the eye naturally gravitates to? What is the logical flow of the foot traffic through the room? Here you can map out form stops to help with the visual flow that does not confuse the eyes. Texture. All items in a room must be chosen with texture in mind. It can be to achieve an abundance of smooth, polished surfaces contrast with more organic forms. These different arrangements of textures are critical for all human senses to be stimulated. Color. As we've discussed in the previous module, color has a psychological impact on us, and it is important to understand the chromatic relationship of color in a room. Light. Lighting can make a big statement. It can turn dull spaces into vibrant and exciting spaces, or you can turn it into a serene, relaxing space. There are two aspects of lighting that you need to consider before starting your design concept. Natural light. It enriches a room and affects our health. Natural light is good for us. Just like plants grow towards the sun, in the same way humans need natural light for healthy minds and bodies. There is an expression, a house where daylight does not enter is a house where the doctor will soon come. Artificial light. The first thing that you can do to rooms that doesn't receive enough natural light is to introduce a mirror right opposite a window to create an uninterrupted reflection of natural light. Your main aim is to have equal light distribution through all your spaces to avoid dark spots and corners. The quality and color of daylight also varies according to where you live. You get 3 layers of light: general light, accent light, and task lighting. In our brains, we have little neurons that respond to lines and edges and bars. So if you have a very busy pattern, a lot of these neurons are stimulated and you'll see a lot of brain activity. If on the other hand you have a blank wall, far fewer neurons will be stimulated and you'll see far less brain activity. There is an immense range of patterns available in different wallpapers, but you have to be careful about what you choose. You need to understand the relationship between the size of the pattern and the size of the wall. If you get this principle right, it can help you to draw attention away from problematic areas like a low ceiling or short wall. Vertical lines on a wall make the space look higher. Your eyes are drawn to stripes. It likes to travel up the line. It enjoys the journey. 3 rules to pull off good balance in a space. Color needs to wrap a space together and not compete with each other. The patterns must be within the same family. It needs to be relatable. Scale is essential. Remember that texture grounds a space, just like neutrals. The only difference is that texture creates visual interest. Texture also affects sound in a room. The overall rule for texture is that it needs light, like a flower needs rain. 2 key elements in mixing and matching patterns successfully on a technical level are scale and proportion. We can't really separate one from the other. Scale and proportion are the main ingredients for creating drama within a space. As a general guide, you can use this rule to pull off great designs when using patterns. 40 to 60% pattern This proportion of pattern will give any space enough excitement to the eyes as well as enough rest. 60-30-10% pattern. Break up the patterned area into 3 zones. For example, 60% pattern on the geometric rug, 30% animal print on the armchair, and 10% accent patterns on the small scatters. 40-30-20-5% pattern. Break up the patterned areas into 5 zones. For example, 40% on the wallpaper, 30% on the rug, 20% on the fabric of the bed frame, and 5% accent patterns on the fabrics of the scatters on the bed and the remaining 5% on the armchair. The idea of pattern is that you want to create enough interest to lead your eye around the room. Grouping items in odd numbers is a well-known interior design concept. It's an established theory on creating a visual pleasing display and a formula that's easy to follow. Start with the 3 pattern rule, which is the 60-30-10 rule, or implement the 5 pattern rule, which is the 40-30-20-5-5 rule. Your collection should include at least 1 large-scale pattern. This becomes like the host of the space, the one that will establish the desired mood in the space. Mix it with 2 medium to small scale patterns. In conclusion, when selecting patterns, remember to get particular with your pattern. Clearly define the mood that you want to create. Select your host, your large scale pattern for items that you want to highlight or use as a focal point. Select your medium to small scale prints for items that needs less attention to complement your overall scheme. Tell the story by creating visual stop points that will draw the eyes around the room. Always consider the application and the crop of your patterns, especially when it comes to upholstery work or wallpapers with repeat patterns.